You are not a king, not yet. But the cold of the cathedral stones seeps through your worn leather boots, as if you already wear the burden of a crown. The air is thick with the ghosts of incense and the very real smoke of burning knowledge, a sweet, acrid perfume rising from the pyre in the square. This city, Münster, is a vessel you are emptying of its old wine to fill with something new, something terrifyingly pure. Before the visions become prophecy and the whispers become law, consider subscribing. The path to this new Jerusalem is paved with secrets you won't want to miss. Your name is Jan van Leyden, and you were a tailor, a performer. Now you stand in the shadow of a man who speaks directly to God, a man whose voice can shatter stained glass. He is Jan Mathis, the prophet, and his eyes burn with the certainty of the righteous. It is his fire that warms this frozen city. He saw this place in a dream, a golden sanctuary at the end of the world, and you, his chosen apostle, at his side. The memory is a splinter of ice in the heat of the fire. Just weeks ago, this city still belonged to itself. Matthias arrived not with an army, but with a whisper that caught in the winter wind and spread like a plague of hope. He stood in the marketplace, his beard a wild thing, his words not promises, but declarations of what already was. The time of the godless is over. The sword of Gideon is at hand. You watched as faith became a fever. Neighbors turned on neighbors. The wealthy merchants, the Lutheran pastors, the Catholic loyalists, they were given a choice: be baptized into the new world or be cast out into the old. You remember the faces of those who refused, etched with a confusion that curdled into terror as the city gates were barred behind them. They were driven out into the snow with nothing but the clothes on their backs, their homes and fortunes now communal property, fuel for the coming kingdom. Was that God's will or simply Mathis's? Now, the Prince Bishop Franz von Waldeck has encircled the city. His army is a ring of steel and hunger tightening around Münster's throat. From the top of the St. Lamberti church tower, you can see their campfires, 1,000 angry, predatory eyes in the darkness. They expect you to starve. They expect you to break. They do not understand. They see walls of stone. You are building a wall of faith. Every day is a ritual. The last vestiges of the old world are systematically erased. The great libraries of the city, the private collections of scholars, the holy books of the fallen churches, all are dragged to the market square. You watch as vellum scrolls curl and blacken, the ink of 1,000 years of thought turning to ash. Matthias proclaims it a purification, a divine command to cleanse the world of human vanity. Only the Bible is to remain. But as you watch a beautifully illuminated manuscript of Plato's work catch fire, a question, quiet as a serpent, uncoils in your mind. When you burn all the old maps, how do you know where you are going? Bernhard Knipperdolling, once a respected cloth merchant and now the city's burgomaster, scurries to do the prophet's bidding. You see the conflict in his eyes. He is a man of order, of ledgers and laws. Yet he now enforces a divine chaos. He oversees the common storage of all food, the abolition of all currency. Gold and silver are melted down for the cause, ornate jewelry hammered into functional tools. All are equal in the New Jerusalem. All are equally hungry, equally faithful, equally trapped. The city's new anthem is not a hymn, but the clang of a hammer on an anvil, the murmur of 1,000 prayers, and the distant, rhythmic thud of the bishop's cannons. The sound is a constant reminder of the world outside, the world that wants to crush you. The siege is a physical reality, a slow-acting poison. But for Mathis, it is a crucible, a test. He climbs the pulpit in the cathedral, his voice echoing in the cavernous space, no longer speaking of God, but as God. They believe their iron can break our spirit, he roars, his gaze sweeping over the gaunt faces turned up to him. They believe their hunger can kill our faith. Fools, God has given me a vision. A hush falls. Visions are the new currency here, more valuable than the gold you melted. On the day of our Lord's resurrection, Easter Sunday, I will ride out against them. The declaration hangs in the air, impossibly bold. Not with an army, but with a handful of true believers. For the Lord has promised me that he will turn their own cannons against them. He will strike them down with their own swords. We will walk through their ranks untouched, and the godless army will melt away like snow in the spring. You look at the faces around you. You see fanaticism, yes, but you also see the deep, hollowed-out desperation of people who have burned every bridge behind them. They have no choice but to believe. To doubt Mathis now is to doubt God, and to doubt God is to accept that your sacrifice, your hunger, your fear, it was all for nothing. You, Jan van Leyden, stand beside the prophet, your expression a mask of unwavering belief. But inside, the tailor's mind is at work, measuring, cutting, seeing the pattern in the cloth. You see a man gambling with the lives of 12,000 souls on the strength of a dream. Prophecy is a wine that makes men mad, and Jan Mathis is drunk on it. The days leading up to Easter are a frenzy of prayer and fasting. The city holds its breath. The bishop's army, unaware of the divine plan, continues its methodical bombardment. A cannonball smashes through the roof of a bakery, killing a woman and her 2 children. Mathis declares them the first martyrs of the coming victory. On Easter morning, the air is sharp and cold. The sky is a sheet of slate. Jan Mathis dresses not in armor, but in simple robes, holding only a staff. He selects 30 men to ride with him. Their faces are pale, their eyes alight with a terrifying fire. They are convinced they are about to witness a miracle. You walk with him to the city gate. The massive wooden doors groan open, just enough for the small party to pass through. For a moment, Mathis turns to you. His eyes are clear, utterly devoid of doubt. "When I return," he says, his voice quiet, "the New Jerusalem will truly begin. Prepare the people, Jan." He steps out into the bleak no-man's land between the city walls and the siege lines. The 30 men follow. You watch from the ramparts as the small band of believers walks calmly towards an army of thousands. The cannons fall silent. The soldiers in the trenches watch, bewildered. It is not an attack. It is a procession. A lone rider from the bishop's camp gallops out to meet them, then another. Then a small group of lance-necked mercenaries, their pikes gleaming dully in the morning light. They surround the prophet and his followers. There is a moment of impossible silence that stretches across the frozen field. A silence where anything feels possible. A miracle, a divine intervention, a new world born from a single act of faith. But what awaits a prophet when the heavens fall silent? The miracle does not come. The silence from heaven is absolute, a vast, empty dome pressing down on the frozen field. You feel the collective breath of the city held in 10,000 lungs, a fragile bubble of hope waiting for a sign. On the field, the Landsknecht mercenary, a man with a face like a slab of raw meat, grins. You cannot hear his words from the ramparts, but you can see the shape of his mockery as he spits on the ground before Mathis. The prophet raises his staff. It happens not with the crash of thunder, but with the wet, percussive thud of a butcher's cleaver. The mercenary's halberd swings in a low, vicious arc. It takes Mathis at the hip, nearly severing him in two. He falls without a cry, his simple robes instantly blossoming with a darkness that steams in the cold air. The bubble of hope over Münster bursts. A sound escapes the crowd on the wall, not a scream, but a deep, guttural moan of 1,000 souls witnessing the death of God. The prophet's 30 followers stand frozen for a heartbeat, their faces masks of disbelief. Then the bishop's men are upon them, a tide of dirty steel and jeering laughter. It is not a battle, it is a slaughter. A man who thought he was a sword of Gideon is cut to ribbons in moments. His followers trampled into the mud under the boots of men who believe only in coin and carnage. You stand paralyzed, your hands gripping the cold stone of the parapet. The tailor's mind, the performer's instinct, it all vanishes. You are just a man watching a dream die in the most brutal way imaginable. The soldiers are now a pack of dogs on a kill. They hack at Matthias's corpse, their laughter carrying on the wind, sharp and cruel. One of them, a captain by his polished gorget, saws at the prophet's neck with a dagger. He lifts the head by its wild beard, a grotesque trophy, and impales it upon a pike. He raises it high for all of Münster to see. The prophet's eyes are open, staring sightlessly at the slate-gray sky that offered him nothing. The final violation is an act of such calculated cruelty, it feels like a dark ritual. They strip the prophet's mangled torso, and with a hammer and a spike, nail his severed genitals to the outer face of the very gate from which he had emerged. It is a message, a symbol. This is what becomes of your faith. This is the true face of your God. A question now hangs heavier than the bishop's cannons. How does a city survive when its foundation, its single, unwavering truth, is decapitated and mocked on a stick? The gate is slammed shut, the heavy bar dropped into place. The sound echoes through the streets, like the lid of a coffin. Behind you, the city dissolves into a new kind of chaos, not the frenzy of faith, but the pandemonium of despair. People are weeping openly, collapsing to their knees. Others stare blankly at the wall, as if they could unsee what they have just witnessed. Bernhard Knipperdolling, the man of order, looks at you, his face ashen, his composure shattered. "It's over," he whispers, the words catching in his throat. "God has abandoned us." Is he right? You feel the city spirit fraying like old thread, ready to snap. The hunger in their bellies, once a noble sacrifice, is now just starvation. The bishop's army, once a test from God, is now just an executioner's blockade. Doubt is a poison, and it is spreading faster than any plague. You can see it in their eyes. They are no longer the chosen. They are the trapped, the damned. You retreat into the cold sanctuary of the cathedral. The air is still thick with the ghost of Mathis's voice, his promises of divine retribution now ringing with a hollow, terrible irony. You sit in the bishop's throne, a seat Matthias himself never dared to take, and let the cold silence envelop you. The performer is gone. The apostle is gone. The tailor remains. And a tailor knows that a garment can be recut, a pattern can be altered. For hours you sit as the city weeps, but your mind is working. It is moving through the wreckage of the day, not with despair, but with a cold, terrifying clarity. Matthias was a hammer, powerful but blunt. He saw the world as a nail. He believed God spoke in thunder, but you've always known that the most powerful words are the ones whispered in a moment of absolute terror. An idea begins to form, a fragile thread in the darkness. Mathis was not wrong. He was misunderstood. His prophecy was not false. It was incomplete. You stand up. The echo of your boots on the stone floor is the only sound in the vast, empty space. You walk out of the cathedral and into the twilight, where the fires of the siege camps burn like the eyes of hell. You find Knipperdolling trying to calm a panicked crowd in the market square, the site of the book burnings. His words of order and reason are useless against this tide of spiritual horror. You push your way through the crowd and climb onto the wooden platform used for proclamations. You wait. Slowly, the noise subsides as they turn to look at you, the prophet's right hand. Their faces are a ruin of hope. They expect nothing. "The prophet is dead," a man cries out, his voice cracking. "God did not save him." You let the accusation hang in the air. You meet the man's gaze. "You saw a man die," you say, your voice quiet, but carrying in the stillness. It is the voice of the performer, measured, controlled. "I saw a sacrifice." A confused murmur ripples through the crowd. "Did you truly believe the path to the New Jerusalem would be without cost?" you ask, your voice rising now, weaving a new tapestry from the bloody rags of the day. Did you think the godless would simply lay down their arms and welcome the kingdom of heaven? Jan Mathis was the new Gideon, yes, but he was also the Lamb. God demanded a test, not just of his faith, but of ours. You are inventing this as you speak, the words coming to you as if from a divine source. Or perhaps from a source far older. The actor's instinct for an audience's deepest needs. Last night, you lie, your voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The Lord came to me in a vision. He showed me this day. He told me that our prophet would be taken from us, to prove that our faith is not in one man, but in him who sent the man. Matthes's death was not a defeat. It was the key that unlocks the final gate. He has paid the blood price, and now the true work begins. You pause, letting them absorb the audacious reframing. You see the first flicker of something other than despair in their eyes. It is confusion, yes, but it is laced with a desperate, grasping hope. They want to believe you. To believe in anything is better than the cold certainty of their doom. Your gaze sweeps across the square, locking onto face after gaunt face. God has given me a new revelation, you declare, your voice now ringing with an authority that surprises even you. 3 days. For 3 days we will mourn our martyred prophet. We will purify ourselves, and on the 3rd day, God will reveal his new law through me, a law for the true kingdom of God on earth, a law that will make us invisible. You see it then, the shift, the moment the story changes. They are no longer Matthes's abandoned flock. They are your congregation. The tailor has become the prophet. You have taken their despair and, with a few bold cuts, have begun to shape it into a new garment, a new faith. But as you look out at their upturned, trusting faces, a new serpent of a question uncoils in your own soul. If you can convince them that a lie is God's own truth, what other truths are you now free to invent? The silence that follows your words is not empty. It is a vacuum, pulling at the very air in the square, and you are filling it. You watch as the terror in their eyes, a sharp and brittle thing, begins to soften, to liquefy, becoming something malleable, something you can shape. They are drowning, and you have just offered them not a rope, but the promise of a rope. For now, it is enough. The next 3 days are a strange, suspended time, a city holding its breath. The mourning you decreed is a thick, theatrical pall that settles over Münster's narrow streets. There is no wailing, no public grief. Your performance has forbidden it. Instead, there is a hushed, feverish anticipation. The people move like specters through a city that is consuming itself. The communal kitchens serve a broth that is little more than hot water, flavored with boiled leather and weeds. You can smell the slow decay on the wind, a sweetish, cloying scent of hunger and unwashed bodies pressed too close together, a perfume of piety and desperation. You do not mourn, you construct. In the cavernous, stolen opulence of the Prince Bishop's former residence, you meet with Nipperdalling. The man's practical mind is a fortress, and its walls have been breached. He looks at you with a new expression, not the camaraderie of a fellow believer, but the wary awe one reserves for a dangerous, unpredictable force. The people are weeding, Jan, he says, his voice a dry rasp. They are on a knife's edge. Let them wait, you reply, your fingers tracing the intricate carvings on a heavy oak chair. You are learning the texture of power. Their old faith had to be broken before a new one could be forged. Mathis was the hammer. I am the fire. You see the flicker of understanding and the fear that accompanies it in his eyes. He saw a dead prophet. You have shown him a martyr. He saw an end. You have sold him a beginning. You give him tasks, simple and absolute. Gather the master craftsman. Take an inventory of every weapon, every ounce of grain, every man and woman still capable of work. He scurries to obey, a man of ledgers finding comfort in lists, even as the world they describe descends into madness. He is your anchor to the world of practical things, the hand that will execute the visions you are now spinning from thin air. On the morning of the third day, you emerge. You have not slept. You have spent the hours cloistered with the Old Testament, not as a believer seeking guidance, but as a tailor seeking a pattern. You are not reading the Word of God. You are plundering it for thread. You stand once more on the platform in the market square. This time, you are not the apostle comforting the flock. You are the vessel. You let the silence build. Let their hunger for a word, any word, become a physical ache. When you finally speak, your voice is different. It is not your own. It is a resonant, hollowed-out sound, as if it comes from the bottom of a deep, ancient well. The Lord has wept for his servant, Jan Mathis, you begin, your eyes sweeping over the pale, upturned faces. And in his sorrow, he has shown me the weakness in our walls, not the walls of stone, but the walls of our spirit. You let them ponder this. Their city is a prison, and you are telling them the true prison is inside themselves. Our laws were the laws of the old world, the laws of man, timid, compromised, unfit for the chosen of God. Your voice hardens, cutting through the morning chill. But now, the time of man's law is over. Tonight begins the time of God's law, as revealed to me, his chosen instrument. You pause. The moment is perfectly balanced. The Lord looks upon the women of Münster, the devout sisters and widows of our martyred brothers, and he sees their loneliness. He sees their vulnerability. It is not his will that any of the faithful should be without a protector, a patriarch, a household. The crowd shifts. The men look confused. The women pull their shawls tighter, a collective, instinctive gesture of apprehension. You are walking a path no one has ever walked before. From this day forward, it is the sacred duty of every man in this new Jerusalem to take unto himself wives, to multiply and fill this holy city with a generation of saints. A woman who remains unmarried beyond the setting of the sun is in violation of God's own command. The silence breaks. It shatters into 1,000 horrified, incredulous whispers. Polygamy, here, now. It is an idea so monstrous, so far beyond the pale of their world, that they cannot at first comprehend it. You are not just reinterpreting scripture, You are setting fire to the very foundations of their lives: marriage, family, the sacred bond between one man and one woman. You see the descent ripple outwards from the center of the crowd. Men who had looked at you with adoration now stare with a dawning horror. Women clutch their children, their faces masks of outrage and fear. This is the moment, the point where the new faith will either set into unbreakable steel or shatter into dust. "This is blasphemy!" a voice cries out. A blacksmith named Molenheek, a man whose loyalty to Mathis was legendary. He pushes his way forward, his face livid. "You defile his memory. You are not a prophet, you are a devil." Before he can say more, Knipperdoling's men are on him. They are no longer city guards. They are your guards. They drag Molenheek away, his protests dissolving into muffled cries. You watch him go, your expression unreadable. "The voice of God is not always a comforting whisper," you say into the stunned silence. "Sometimes it is a sword, and it has come to divide the true believers from the faithless. You will obey, or you will be cast out from his sight." You do not wait for their ascent. You step down from the platform and walk through the parted crowd, a prophet who has just declared war on the soul of his own city. That evening, the new law descends like a shroud. You make your intentions brutally clear. You summon the city's most prominent men, the elders and guildmasters who still command some respect. You tell them they will be the first to follow the new commandment, and you will lead by example. You have already chosen her. Among the throngs of faces, one had stood out, a woman whose beauty was a defiant flower growing in a graveyard. A former nun, they said, who had fled her convent to join the Anabaptist cause. Her name is Devara van Haarlem. You summon her to the Prince Bishop's residence. She enters not with the timidity of a supplicant, but with a guarded composure that you find more intoxicating than any physical beauty. Her eyes hold no fanatic's fire, but a cool, appraising intelligence. She has survived one collapsed world. She is measuring the stability of this new one. "You are to be my first wife," you state. It is not a proposal. It is a decree. She looks at you, her gaze unwavering. "The first of how many, prophet?" The question is a sliver of glass. It is not submission. It is a negotiation. She is not asking about your piety, but about her position. In that moment, you see not just a wife, but an ally. "A queen, the first of 16, you answer, the number coming to you with the force of revelation, a perfect biblical-sounding number that asserts your absolute authority. You will be the first, the one above all others." A flicker of something, triumph perhaps, crosses her face before being suppressed. She inclines her head. "I will obey God's will. Your marriage is a public spectacle the next day, a grim and hurried ceremony that serves as a powerful message. The prophet takes a wife. Now, so must you." A wave of forced marriages sweeps the city. Men take their neighbors' widows, their servants, young girls barely out of childhood. Houses that once held a single family now groan with the weight of 3 or 4, filled with the simmering resentment of women forced into shared beds, and the brutish pride of men handed a divine right to ownership. They manage to capture you in the street, binding your hands and proclaiming you a heretic. For a few hours, your new kingdom hangs by a thread. Locked in a cellar, you can hear the sounds of fighting in the streets, the clash of steel, the screams. It is Knipperdalling's men against the rebels. The city itself is the prize. Then, the door is thrown open. It is Knipperdalling, his face smeared with blood and grime, his eyes burning with the zeal of a convert who has just shed blood for his new faith. "The traitors have been dealt with," he says, his voice ragged. They bring the captured rebels to the market square. There are nearly 50 of them, bound and beaten. The city gathers, their faces numb with shock and fear. You are no longer their prophet. You have transcended that. You climb the platform, but this time you do not speak of God's will. You speak of judgment. You point to Knipperdalling. "You shall be my sword," you command, your voice echoing across the silent square. "Carry out the Lord's sentence." Knipperdalling, the respectable cloth merchant, takes a heavy executioner's sword. He walks to the first kneeling man, Molenheek, and with a single, brutal, and surprisingly clean strike, beheads him. He moves to the next, and the next. The rhythmic, wet chop of the sword is the only sound, a terrifying punctuation mark at the end of your sermon. But it is not enough. To simply have them executed is the act of a tyrant. You must make this a sacred act. You call out to the crowd, "These men turned against God. All who are pure of heart will now help us cleanse this holy city of their stain." You hand daggers and pikes to men in the crowd, your most fervent followers. A frenzy of righteous slaughter begins. Neighbor turns on neighbor, friend on friend, their faces contorted with a terrifying ecstasy as they prove their loyalty by bathing in the blood of heretics. When it is over, the square is an abattoir. You stand above it all, untouched. You have not merely survived a rebellion, you have turned it into a blood sacrifice. You have baptized your new order in the gore of its dissenters. You feel a strange lightness, a severing of the final thread that connected you to the man you once were. The tailor from Leiden is dead. The prophet's apostle is dead. A new being stands in their place, forged in desperation and blood. You look out over your terrified, starving, and now utterly broken city. They are no longer a congregation. They are subjects, and a subject needs a king. You return to your residence and command the city's finest goldsmith to be brought before you. You hand him the melted chalices and gold chains taken from the old churches. "Fashion me a crown," you say. "And a scepter, and a chain of office for my chief steward, Knipperdalling." A few days later, you stage your own coronation. You stand before the entire population of Münster on a specially constructed throne, Devara at your side. You wear robes of scarlet silk taken from a bishop's wardrobe, and on your head sits the new crown, a circlet of stolen gold and impossible promises. You raise the scepter. God has cast down the mighty and raised up the meek. There are no more prophets, for the kingdom is here. By the will of God Almighty, I am Jan, by the grace of God, King of the New Jerusalem. The crown feels heavy, a cold weight of absolute power and absolute isolation. You are king of 12,000 trapped souls, king of a city that is eating itself alive, king of a prophecy that you must keep inventing day by day just to stay alive. But as you look down from your throne at the sea of gaunt, upturned faces, a terrifying question echoes in the silence of your own mind. What is a king without a kingdom? And what is this kingdom but a gilded tomb? Your throne is a splintering island in a sea of ghosts. The crown, hastily made, feels less like a symbol of divine right and more like a shackle binding you to the skull of this dying city. Power, you discover, is not a grand orchestra, but a single, high-pitched note held until your lungs burn. It is the constant, screeching awareness that you are the sole architect of a building that has no foundation, and the ground is beginning to shake. You create a court from the city's last dregs of grandeur. Nipperdalling, his face a mask of grim duty, is your stadtholder, the hand that moves when your mind commands. Burnt Krechting, a man whose piety is indistinguishable from his brutality, becomes the commander of your personal guard, the Trabantans. They flank your throne, 24 men dressed in finery stripped from the homes of the wealthy, their gaunt faces and hollow eyes a bizarre contrast to the silks and velvets they wear. They are the living embodiment of your kingdom, a corpse dressed for a wedding. Your days become a suffocating ritual of make-believe. You hold court in the Cathedral square, settling disputes between wives who accuse each other of hoarding scraps of bread, or between men who argue over the ownership of a single scabby potato. You dispense justice with the sweeping, theatrical pronouncements of a stage king, your voice echoing with a manufactured authority that you pray no one sees through. But you see their eyes. They no longer look at you with the fire of faith. They look at you with the dead, calculating stare of the truly hungry, weighing the value of your words against the gnawing emptiness in their stomachs. Devara, your queen, moves through this pageant with a chilling grace. She is the only one who does not seem to be starving. She has an economy of motion, a stillness that makes her the true center of any room she enters. In the private chambers of the Prince Bishop's palace, where the 16 royal wives live in a state of whispered warfare, she is the absolute monarch. You watch her one evening as she calmly divides a small loaf of bread, a treasure beyond measure, amongst the other women. Her cuts are precise, her distribution flawless. She gives the largest piece to the youngest, a weeping girl of 15, and the smallest to a woman who had challenged her authority the day before. It is not an act of kindness. It is a lesson in power, delivered with a crumb. They fear you, she tells you later, as you stand on a balcony overlooking the silent, lightless city. The only lights are the enemy campfires, a glittering necklace of death strangling your Jerusalem. But fear is a thin broth. It gives no strength. And what do you suggest, my queen? You keep your voice light, but the question is real. She is the only person you can ask. They need a spectacle, she says, her gaze fixed on the distant fires. They have forgotten what it is to be chosen. They only remember what it is to be hungry. You must give them a new memory. And so you become a showman again. You decree feasts where there is no food, staging elaborate plays in the market square. The actors are half-starved citizens, their movements slow, their voices thin and reedy. They perform the story of King David and his many wives, of Gideon routing the Midianites, of the coming of the Messiah. You rewrite the third acts yourself. In your versions, David's kingdom is established forever in Münster. Gideon's victory is a prophecy of the bishop's defeat, and the Messiah is not a man who died on a cross, but a king who sits on a throne. The citizens watch from the sidelines, their faces impassive. They are an audience waiting for a miracle that is no longer on the program. They clap when they are supposed to clap, their hands making a dry, rustling sound like dead leaves. After one such performance, as the actors are being led away, you see one of them, a carpenter named Heinrich Gresbeck, stumble from weakness. He looks up at you on your viewing platform, and for a fleeting second, his eyes hold not reverence, not fear, but a flicker of something else, a cold, hard assessment. He is not watching a play, he is watching you. The look vanishes as quickly as it came, but it stays with you, a splinter under the skin. The city breathes shallowly. Winter loosens its grip, but spring brings no relief. The new grass that pushes through the cobblestones is picked and boiled into a bitter slime. The last of the horses have been eaten. The cats and dogs are long gone. You hear whispers, unspeakable rumors that slide like sewer rats through the darkest alleys of the city, of bodies vanishing from the graveyards, of parents who lock their children away, not for their protection, but for their preservation. Your pronouncements become more desperate, more grandiose. You declare that God has made you immune to bullets, a final, untestable piece of divine theater. You walk the city ramparts during bombardments, your scarlet robe a beacon against the gray stone, while your guards cower behind the merlons. Cannonballs scream past, shattering stone and throwing dirt, but you remain untouched. Is it a miracle? Or is it the simple statistics of 1,000 to 1 chance, the same luck that allows one man in a plague-stricken house to survive? You don't know. You only know that you must keep walking, must keep playing the part, because the moment you stop, the entire stage will collapse. Nipperdalling comes to you one night, his face etched with a despair so profound it has erased all other expressions. "The grain is gone, Jan," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "The communal stores are empty. There is nothing left." The words hang in the air of the opulent room, an obscenity. You look at the tapestries on the wall, the silver candlesticks on the table. You are king of a treasure chest full of bones. "Then God will provide," you say. The words taste like ash in your mouth. "How?"
Nipperdalling's voice cracks, the last of his composure shattering. How, Jan? What vision has he given you now? Will manna fall from heaven? Will the fish and loaves multiply in the market square?
Tell me. You have no answer. The well of invention has run dry. For the first time, you have no new lie, no new interpretation, no new act for the play. You are just a man in a stolen robe in a locked room, and the executioner is at the door. The end arrives not as a clap of thunder, but as a quiet click of a lock. It is the night of May 25th, 1535. A storm lashes the city, a frenzy of wind and rain that seems like the heavens themselves are trying to wash Münster from the face of the earth. You are with Devara, the sound of the gale, a welcome noise that drowns out the silence of your own thoughts. A scream cuts through the wind, then another. It is not the cry of hunger, it is sharp, a sound of steel and surprise. Kretchting bursts into the room, his fine doublet torn, his face pale with shock. "The gate of the cross," he gasps. "They're inside." You feel a cold rush, not of fear, but of strange, final clarity. The play is over. The audience has stormed the stage. You grab a sword, a prop you have carried but never used. It feels heavy and unfamiliar in your hand. You run out into the palace courtyard, into the storm. The city has become a slaughterhouse. The bishop's landsknechts, the same men who butchered Mathis, are pouring through a gate left mysteriously unlocked. They move with the brutal efficiency of professionals. There is no battle. There is only a hunt. Your starving, weakened followers are cut down in the streets, their crude pikes and daggers useless against disciplined steel. The New Jerusalem is drowning in its own blood. You see Heinrich Gresbeck, the carpenter, standing beside a captain of the bishop's army, pointing towards the palace. His face is illuminated by a burning building, and in his eyes you see the same cold, assessing look from the day of the play. The splinter under your skin has become the axe in your back. Your Trabanten, your gaudy royal guards melt away, their loyalty dissolving in the face of real death. You, Knipperdalling and Krechting, are cornered in the market square, the site of your triumphs, now the stage for your final act. You fight. You, the tailor, swing a sword with the desperate fury of a trapped animal. But there are too many. A blow from a mace shatters your leg. You fall onto the wet cobblestones, the same stones where Molenheek's blood was spilled to sanctify your rule. Looking up, you see the faces of the mercenaries surrounding you. They are not the faces of demons or divine avengers. They are just the faces of men, weary, dirty, and indifferent. One of them grins, the same kind of empty, cruel grin you saw on the man who killed Matthias. He raises his pike. You close your eyes. No longer a king, no longer a prophet. You are just Jan Bokkelsen from Leiden again, a man who sewed a crown and found it was a shroud. And in the final roaring darkness, you hear not the voice of God, but the mocking laughter of an audience as the curtain falls.